On March 5, 2009, Michael Jackson walked onto the stage at the O2 Arena in London and announced to a roaring crowd that this is it.
This is it. I mean, this is really it. This is the final curtain call. Okay? And
would be his final comeback tour and his final curtain call. And the energy in that arena was electric because the world had been waiting for Michael Jackson to return to the stage, and finally here he was promising 50 shows that would remind everyone exactly why he was the king of pop. But what the world did not know in that moment, and what has taken years of court testimony and investigation and legal proceedings to fully understand, is that behind the spectacle of that announcement, a much darker story was already unfolding. A story about a man who was exhausted and fragile and terrified, and who told the people closest to him that he did not know if he could do this, that 50 shows was too much, that his body could not handle it, and who called his mother and said, "Mum, I don't know if I can do this. I can't handle 50 shows." And yet the machine was already in motion, and stopping it was not something that the people around him were willing to do. The circumstances that led to Michael Jackson's death on June 25, 2009, did not begin in the early hours of that morning. They began decades earlier, in 1984, when a pyrotechnic explosion during the filming of a Pepsi commercial left Michael with second and third degree burns on his scalp, and that accident opened the door to the powerful painkillers and sedatives that would follow him for the rest of his life, medications that cause dependency almost instantly. Medications that once they enter a person's system create a cycle of pain and relief that is extraordinarily difficult to break. And Michael spent the rest of his career managing that cycle while simultaneously managing the demands of being the most famous entertainer on earth. And by the time the 2005 child molestation trial was over, a long and exhausting public ordeal that Michael described as one of the most painful experiences of his life. The medications were no longer just managing physical pain. They had become his escape from unbearable internal pain, from the insomnia that had plagued him for years, from the paranoia and anxiety that had built up over decades of living under extraordinary public scrutiny. And the drugs had stopped being treatment and had become the only thing standing between Michael Jackson and a reality he could not face without them. The specific drug at the center of what happened on the night of June 24th into the morning of June 25th was propofol, a powerful anesthetic that medical professionals use in operating rooms under carefully controlled conditions, and that Michael Jackson referred to in his circle by the name milk because of its white color and the way it looked when injected. And Michael had been using propofol to sleep for an extended period before his death, relying on it not because it was an appropriate sleep aid, but because his chronic insomnia was so severe that he believed it was the only thing that would allow him to get the rest his body needed. And this is deeply important context for understanding what happened with Conrad Murray, because Murray was not the first doctor Michael had asked to administer propofol, and he would not have been administering it at all if he were genuinely acting in his patient's best medical interests, rather than in the interests of keeping Michael functional enough to perform. Conrad Murray first came into Michael Jackson's life in 2006 in Las Vegas, when Michael needed a doctor to treat his daughter Paris Jackson for a cold. And that initial encounter earned Murray a level of trust that eventually led to Murray being hired as Michael's personal physician for the This Is It tour at a salary of $150,000 per month. That $150,000 per month was not paid by Michael Jackson. It was paid by AEG Live, the concert promotion company that had organized the This Is It tour and that had a financial stake in Michael's ability to perform 50 shows at the O2 Arena. And the implications of that payment arrangement are staggering because it means that the doctor responsible for Michael Jackson's health was not financially accountable to Michael Jackson. He was financially accountable to the company that needed Michael Jackson on that stage. The pressure that AEG Live was putting on Conrad Murray became starkly visible in an email that co-CEO Paul Gongaware sent to director and choreographer Kenny Ortega, and the email stated in plain terms that AEG wanted to remind Murray that it was AEG, not Michael, who was paying his salary, and that they wanted to remind him what was expected of him. And when Paul Gongaware was questioned about that email during deposition, he answered, "I don't recall more than 30 times," eventually attempting to characterize it as short-form communication and claiming he simply wanted the doctor to do his job. But there is no reading of that email that is consistent with normal professional communication between a concert promoter and a performer's physician, and the message it sends is clear. Your job is to keep this man performing, and your ability to continue earning $150,000 a month depends on your willingness to prioritize that above everything else. By early June of 2009, Michael was showing serious signs of physical and mental deterioration. He was frequently absent from rehearsals. He was struggling to remember lyrics to songs he had performed thousands of times throughout his career, and asked for a teleprompter on stage, which was something he had never required before. And makeup artist Karen Fay, who had worked with Michael for over 20 years, testified in court that by mid-June, he was so thin she could see his ribs through his skin, and that she feared for his life. The situation reached a critical point on June 19th when Michael was so weak he was shaking from chills, appeared disoriented, and was unable to rehearse. Kenny Ortega was feeding him with a spoon, rubbing his cold feet, wrapping him in blankets, and eventually sending him home. And Ortega later testified that he knew something was deeply wrong and that he was troubled by what he was seeing, but the response from AEG Live to this visible crisis was not to stop the show. Not to get Michael proper medical evaluation and rest, but to hold an emergency meeting the following day at Michael's house, involving Ortega, Murray, and AEG executives, at which Murray reportedly told Ortega directly not to act like a doctor or an amateur psychologist, to direct the show and leave Michael's health to him, and the show preparations continued. What happened over the next several days seemed to offer a temporary reprieve. On June 23rd, Michael unexpectedly came back to life on stage, was focused and energetic, and rehearsed at full intensity for nearly an hour and a half, and June 24th continued in the same vein with Michael in good spirits and seemingly functional, and the rehearsal on the evening of June 24th would be the last time the world would see Michael Jackson perform, and the footage from that evening shows him full of energy and passion and everything that made him the greatest entertainer who ever lived. That footage makes what happened in the early hours of June 25th even more heartbreaking, because it shows how close he was and how much he still had to give. At 1 in the morning on June 25th, Michael Jackson could not sleep, and he asked Conrad Murray for medication to help him rest, and Murray administered several sedatives that did not work. And as the hours passed and Michael remained awake and increasingly distressed, he eventually asked Murray for the milk, for propofol, telling the doctor that he had rehearsals, that he had to be ready for the shows in England, and that he needed to sleep. Under the pressure of Michael's desperation, Murray administered the propofol, and a recording that would later be played at trial captures Michael's voice after the drug had taken effect, slurred and disoriented, and talking about his show and saying he felt good and that he had never felt like this in his life. And at 10:50 in the morning, Michael Jackson fell asleep for the last time. At 11:50 in the morning, Michael Jackson fell asleep for the last time. When Alberto Alvarez, a security guard, rushed into the bedroom, he witnessed something that would be described in court testimony as a total medical absurdity. Murray was performing CPR with only one hand on Michael, who was lying on a soft mattress, which is an utterly useless surface for CPR to be effective. And rather than immediately directing Alvarez to call 911 or take over compressions, Murray stopped what he was doing and ordered Alvarez to help him collect medical vials and IV bags and stash them into bags before getting Michael help, meaning that while Michael Jackson was dying, Conrad Murray's first priority was concealing the evidence of what he had given him, and it was only after the room had been partially cleaned of evidence that Murray finally said to Alvarez to hurry and get an ambulance. The 911 call was made at 12:21 in the afternoon. Paramedics from the Los Angeles Fire Department arrived 5 minutes later and found Michael without a pulse and not breathing, and Conrad Murray made the extraordinary decision to argue with the paramedics about whether resuscitation should continue rather than simply deferring to the medical professionals who had just arrived, and Michael was eventually transported to Ronald Reagan UCLA Medical Center, where resuscitation efforts continued for more than an hour before doctors officially pronounced him dead at 2:26 in the afternoon. What happened immediately after Michael was declared dead is one of the strangest and most revealing moments in this entire story. Murray told Michael's assistant, Williams, that they needed to go back to the house to retrieve some kind of cream, saying it was something in Michael's room that he would not want the world to know about. And Williams was so shocked that a man who had just watched his patient die was already worried about retrieving items from the bedroom that he lied to Murray and said the police had taken the car keys, and then immediately called security and ordered them to lock down all entrances to the estate so that Murray could not return before investigators arrived. And this instinct by Williams to protect the scene turned out to be critical because investigators would later determine that the cream Murray wanted to retrieve was almost certainly cover for wanting access to the evidence of the propofol administration that had killed Michael. The trial of Conrad Murray began in 2011, and throughout the proceedings Murray maintained a defense that never changed. He claimed he had never administered a fatal dose, that he had stepped out of the bedroom for just 2 minutes, and that during that brief window Michael Jackson, driven by depression and insomnia, had injected himself with propofol, and the prosecution's key expert witness, Dr. Christopher Rogers, the forensic pathologist who performed Michael's autopsy, demolished that theory by explaining that the level of sedation in Michael's system at the time of death would not have allowed him to regain enough consciousness and motor function to self-administer the drug within the 2-minute window Murray described, and the jury believed the prosecution. Murray was convicted of involuntary manslaughter and sentenced to 4 years in prison, the maximum penalty available under that charge, though he was released after serving approximately 2 years due to California's prison overcrowding policies and good behavior, and after losing his medical licenses in California, Nevada, and Texas. Murray eventually returned to the Caribbean and in 2023 opened a private medical institute in Trinidad and Tobago, where he reportedly continues to practice medicine to this day, still maintaining his innocence in the death of Michael Jackson. But Murray's conviction, as justified as it was, addressed only one piece of a much larger and more complex picture of what led to Michael Jackson's death.
Because Conrad Murray did not create Michael Jackson's addiction. He did not put Michael in a situation where he felt financially trapped into performing 50 shows his body could not handle. He did not spend years managing a global celebrity enterprise that prioritized performance and profit over the health and well-being of the human being at the center of it all, and the 1984 Pepsi accident that introduced Michael to powerful painkillers, the 2005 trial that burned through whatever psychological reserves he had left, and the AEG live contract that turned his final comeback into a 50-show obligation he told his mother he could not survive. Those are the chapters of the story that Murray's conviction never addressed, and the civil lawsuit that the Jackson family brought against AEG Live ultimately failed to hold the company legally accountable for its role in the circumstances that led to Michael's death. But the email from Paul Gongaware saying we want to remind Murray that it is AEG not MJ who is paying his salary remains in the public record as a document that tells you everything you need to know about how the people running This Is It viewed their relationship to Michael Jackson and to the doctor they were paying to keep him on stage. What June 25, 2009 took from the world is something that cannot be fully measured. It took the greatest entertainer who ever lived at a moment when he still had so much left to give. It took a father from 3 children who needed him, and it took from Michael himself the chance to prove on those O2 stages that he was still the king of pop he had always been. And the footage from the June 24th rehearsal, the last time anyone saw Michael Jackson perform, stands as a permanent reminder of what was lost and of what might have been if the people around him had chosen his well-being over their business plan.